don't know if it's better to... Oh, Jesus. Let's get started. I gotta clean up my yarn. And I think I'm over this. Maybe one more row and then I'm done. Give it a little color. Good afternoon. Does it look blurry or is it clear on you guys' end? And I'm putting a collar on a poncho that I made. Is the screen clear? Can y'all hear me? Let's put my mic in. I don't know. Let me check and see if the screen clear, because drop the stuff. Oh. Nobody's going to tell me. I can't even see on this damn thing. Why will like my brightness is down? I got it in dark mode. Either way. What am I doing right now? I can't even see. Please like the live. I'm just trying to make sure that the live is clear because nobody answered me. So now I gotta check for myself. I don't know if the live is clear. Can't see. I guess it's clear. I don't know. I guess the live is clear. My glasses are dirty too. All right, I have to close that. This. Please like the live, everybody. As you come into the live, please like the live and subscribe to the channel. I'm adding a collar to the poncho, and then I'm going to be done with the poncho. And then we're going to move on to something else. Is the screen clear, babe? Can you hear me? Hey, can you let me know if you can hear me and if the screen is clear? Because it looks a little blurry on my end, but it could just be because I have the window open. I mean, the blinds open. Oh, no. Oh, that's not even on at all. So I'm realizing that you guys couldn't hear me. Hmm. Oh. Okay. I think my mic died anyway. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I'm just finishing up this thing. I was gonna make a hood, but I just don't feel like doing all of that. So I'm gonna finish this, put this to the side. I really need to is this the screen is clear or my voice is clear? Like, is it blurry? Can y'all see clearly? Okay, that's good. All right, so I'm going to finish this up, put this to the side, and then I need to finish this hat over here. I really need to finish my skirt so I can wear it tomorrow. That's what I need to do. I'm just too lazy. Make sure you guys like the live for me, please. All right, so I'll tuck those strings in later, but the poncho is done. I hope it fits the person that is going to. And I think this is inside out, and I'm gonna be so annoyed if it's inside out. Is this inside out? Or am I bugging? I'm so confused. Either way, I'll fix this another day. But this is the poncho. I did the collar. Might have to flip this collar in. But either way, I'll fix it later so that way I can get it out. I should fix it right now so I can. Oh, it's a lot. Then I'm gonna have to go get the mailer. But I'll just buy the label later. Okay, one project is done. We can get this out the way for now. Now, I'm trying to get everything done. Like, I need to do the other arm on my cardigan. I need to finish this hat as well. I think this is easier to do, so let me do this right now with this black. I don't even know how many rows I did for the other one, but just gonna. I wish I could play some music. All right. This is getting on my nerves too, hitting the table. Take that off. How many rows I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16. Damn, am I supposed to be doing back loop? really don't want to do this hat right now. But it is what it is. Because, what did I say? 16. Thank you for the hearts. After I finish this hat, then I probably need to Everyone, please like the live and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hopefully I can get a tutorial out by later on, but I'm gonna try to finish as much projects as I can on live right now. Finish the poncho. Now I have to finish this hat, which is a cat eared beanie or just a beanie, whatever. And then after this beanie, I'm going to either work on my cardigan. I think I have to just put an arm on there, or either work on this skirt. And then I started some pants for my daughter. I don't know how much project. I just like the live and subscribe to the channel. We're gonna see how much stuff I can get to. Hey, welcome back. I don't know why the thing is rattling. It's really working my nerves. Need a crochet skewer that I use the granny square technique. Oh, okay. I gotta see what that is. You should post a tutorial because I will definitely watch it and make it because I don't think I've ever seen that. You should definitely post a tutorial. I'm gonna post a tutorial hopefully by tonight. I don't know. Or tomorrow. I'll just have it post tomorrow early in the morning. And then I gotta work on another tutorial. How you break the crochet hook? Oh, okay. Can everyone please like the live if you haven't done so already and subscribe to the channel? Okay, no problem. All right, let me see how much rows I got now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24. Yeah, you're gonna have to get a metal hook, preferably with a silicone thing on it, because so your hand don't hurt. So I need to do like 20 more rows. Hopefully. I'm making another hat like this. Yes, thank you for stopping by. Have a good day. I need about 24 more rows, which is very tiring. I have a row counter too. I need to start using my row counter because, how many rows did I say I was at? Like 24 already. I think. Let me count again. Later. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I'm working on row 25. Here's my row counter. On row 25. And now I'm on row 26. All right, y'all, I need to go to the bathroom. I will be back. All right, I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. All right. We're on row 26. Again. One, two, three, four, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I have 29 rows so far. Yes, please press the light. On row 30 now. Almost there. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel and like the live. And hopefully I can get a tutorial out either tonight or tomorrow. But I do have other videos if you guys would like to watch those videos, support the channel. And join a membership, because one of the videos that I post after a certain time, it will be members only. And right now I only have one member that has access to certain things, so Alright, I'm almost done with this, but I'm trying to think if I should do an extra row. Alright. Thanks for the hearts. Okay, and that hat is done. All right. Finish that. Now, I really need to finish the skirt. Alright, so I finished my poncho. I've finished the hat. Now I'm trying to finish my skirt. The poncho and the hat is not for me, but I'm trying to knock out these projects. I have a cardigan that I've been working on for mad long because I just keep putting it down. I need to finish that as well, but I don't know how I'm going to be feeling about that. But I do want to finish this skirt. So I think that's the last thing. Last thing I'll do. Welcome in, everybody. Please like the live, subscribe to the channel. I'm finishing up a skirt right now. I'm on project number 3 that I had to finish. And there's one more project that I need, well, 2 more projects I need to finish, but I think this is gonna be the last thing I work on today. Well, on live. And then everything else will probably be either a different live or done off camera. need to start posting some content on my vlog channel as well. Thank you. I'm trying to finish this skirt for real, before I get off live, because if I don't, I'm not going to finish it, and I really want to wear it tomorrow. It's like, oh. they doing over there? Cutting grass. What's all this noise? Babe, are you still watching? I'm hungry. Yeah, so hopefully hello, welcome in. Everyone, please like the live and subscribe to the channel. I'm working on a skirt, an ankle length skirt, and I'm just finishing it up. I think I don't have that much to do, but Still gotta crochet. So I need to try it on again and see where it's at. I'm making a skirt. Everyone, please like the live. Hello, 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 everybody coming in. Please like the live and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for the hearts. Let me try this on. Because I be thinking I made progress and it don't even be where I want it to be. All right, so need to do. I'm hungry. All right. I have a chunk more of this to do.
Device storage full. The download failed due to lack of device storage space. Free up some space. And try again. Prologue heading level 1. Helene heading level 2. Paris, 1943. Darkness. Helene stumbled forward, unable to see through the black void that surrounded her. She could feel the shoulders of the others jostling on either side. The smell of unwashed bodies rose, mingling with Helene's own. Her hand brushed against a rough wall, scraping her knuckles. Someone had tripped and yelped hours earlier, when Helene had been brought from her underground cell at the police station into the adjacent holding area. She was surprised to see other women waiting. She had not encountered anyone since her arrest. She had studied the women, who looked to be from all walks of life, trying to discern some commonality among ages and classes that had caused them to be here. There was only one. They were Jews. The yellow star they wore, weather-soiled and crudely sewn onto a worn, second-hand dress or pressed crisply against the latest Parisian finery, was identical, and it made them all the same. They had stood in the bare holding area, not daring to speak. Helene was certain that her arrest had been some sort of mistake. She had done nothing wrong. They had to free her. But even as she thought this, she knew that the old world of being a French citizen with rights was long gone. An hour passed, then two. There was nowhere to sit, and a few people dropped to the floor. An elderly woman tossed against the wall, mouth agape. Except for the slight rise and fall of her chest, she might have been dead. Hunger gnawed at Helene, and she wished that she still had the baked goods she purchased at the market just before she was taken. The meager breads, which had seemed so pathetic days earlier, now it had been a feast. But her belongings had been confiscated upon arrest. Helene looked upward through the thin slit of window near the ceiling. They were still in Paris. The sour smell from the city street and the sounds of cars and footsteps despite the curfew were familiar, if not comforting. How long they would stay here, she did not know. Helene was torn. She did not want to remain in this empty room ever. Yet she also dreaded leaving, for wherever they were going would surely be worse. Finally, the door had opened. Sordair, a voice ordered them out in French, reminding Helene that the policemen, who had brought them here and who were keeping them captive, were not Germans, but their own people. Helene had filed into the dimly lit corridor with the others. They exited the police station and stepped outside onto the pavement. At the sight of the familiar buildings and the street leading away from the station, Helene momentarily considered fleeing. She had no idea, though, where she would go. She imagined running to her childhood home, debated whether her estranged mother would take her in or turn her away. But the women were heavily guarded and there was no real possibility of escape. Instead, Helene breathed the fresh air in great gulps, sensing that she might not be in the open again for quite some time. The women were herded up a ramp toward an awaiting truck. Helene recoiled. They were being placed in the back part of the vehicle where goods should have been carried, not people. Helene wanted to protest but did not dare. Smells of stale grain and rotting meat, the truck's previous cargo, assaulted her nose, mixing with her own stench of the warm air. It had been 3 days since she had bathed or changed and her dress was wrinkled and filthy, her once luminous black curls still and matted against her head. When the women were all inside the truck, the back hatch shut with an ominous click. "Where are they taking us?" someone whispered. Silence. No one knew and they were all too afraid to venture a guess. They had heard the stories of the trains headed east to awful places from which no one ever returned. Helene wondered how long the journey would be. As they bumped along the Paris streets, Helene's bones, already sore from sleeping on the hard prison cell floor, cried out in pain. Her mouth was dry and her stomach empty. She wanted water and a meal, a hot bath. She wanted home, if home was a place that even existed anymore. Helene's husband, Gabriel, was missing in Germany, his fate unknown. She had scarcely spoken with her parents since before the war, and Helene herself had been taken without notice. Nobody knew that she had been arrested or had any idea where she had gone. It was as if she simply no longer existed. To distract herself, Helene tried to picture the route they were taking outside the windowless truck, down the boulevards she had just days earlier walked freely, past the cafes and shops. The familiar locations should have been some small comfort, but this might well be the last time she ever came this way, Helene realized, and the thought only worsened her despair. Several minutes later, the truck stopped with a screech. They were at a train station, Helene guessed. The back hatch to the truck opened and the women peered out into pitch blackness. "Grabs," a voice commanded. That they were under the watch of Germans now seemed to confirm Helene's worst fears about where they were headed. "Schnell," someone let out a cry, a mix of the anguish and uncertainty they all felt. The women clambered from the truck and Helene stumbled, banging her knee and yelping. "Quiet," a woman's voice beside her cautioned fearfully. A hand reached out and helped her down the ramp with an unexpectedly gentle touch. Outside the truck it was the tiniest bit lighter, and Helene was just able to make out some sort of loading dock. The group moved forward into a large building. Now Helene found herself in complete darkness once more. This was how she had come to be in an unfamiliar building, shuffling forward blindly with a group of women she did not know, uncertain where they were going or the fate that might befall them. She could see nothing, only feel the fear and confusion in the air around her. They seemed to be in some sort of corridor, pressed even more closely together than they had been. Helene put her hand on the shoulder of the woman in front of her, trying hard not to fall again. They were herded roughly through a doorway, into a room that was also unlit. No one moved or spoke. Helene had heard rumors of mass executions, groups of people gassed or simply shot. The Germans might do that to them now. Her skin prickled. She thought of those she loved most, Gabriel and Despite everything that had happened, her parents, Elaine wanted their faces, not fear, to be her final thought. Bright lights turned on suddenly, illuminating the space around them. Manja, someone behind her, exclaimed softly. Elaine blinked her eyes, scarcely daring to believe what she saw. They were not in a camp or a prison at all. Instead, they were standing in the main showroom of what had once been one of the grandest department stores in Paris. One heading level 1, Louise heading level 2, Henley on Thames, 1953. The fog is rolling in low across the Thames as I shutter the second-hand shop on Bell Street for the night, the mist weaving its way, tentacle-like, into the alley where my bicycle leans against the side of the gray brick building. The sudden gloom seems to signal a change, the start of something ominous. I draw my woolen scarf closer around my neck against the brisk September air, then climb onto the rickety shopper and begin to pedal home. I navigate through the town center, then left on Hart Street and toward the base of Henley Bridge, welcoming the stillness. There's no one out at this late hour to require a greeting or stare at me oddly. When I moved here 7 years ago after marrying Joe, the bucolic Oxfordshire town had at first seemed like a haven,
You ate?
a welcome refuge from my mom's dismal flat in South London. Only later would I realize how small the town actually was, how stifling it would become. 10 minutes later, I
What is
reach
the
home.
bathroom?
Our low, two-story house on the outskirts
What
of
a
town
thing
at
at?
the end of Wargrave Road is identical to the half-dozen
Let's
members in a
see.
row. Gray brick with a tiny front yard just large enough for a single rose bush each. It is situated in one of the new housing developments.
Hello, welcome in. All right, let's turn the book back on.
That had been erected hastily after the war. The site had formerly been a crater where a bomb had fallen, and I sometimes breathe deeply and imagine that I can still smell the gunpowder, though the house appears well kept from a distance. Closer, I can see the little faults. Even in the near darkness, the cracks at the foundation, a bit of trim around the window that is beginning to fall. I glance at the Colvin and make a mental note to ask Joe to fill it. In the morning, of course. He will be on his third brandy or perhaps fourth, so he won't remember if I mention it now. Inside, the house is still. Joe is asleep in his chair, reliving the battles he fought, as he does every night. His newsboy cap sits on the table, and he is still wearing his white dress shirt from his long day at the accountancy firm. Sleeves.
Thank you guys for 10 likes. What's going on?
A greeting or stare at me oddly. When I moved here 7 years ago after marrying Joe, the bucolic Oxfordshire town had at first seemed like a haven, a welcome refuge for my mum's dismal flat in South London. Only later would I realize
I'm
how small the town actually was.
finishing
How
a
short Linda
skirt
would become.
that I was
10
working
minutes
on.
later, I reach home. Our low, two-story house on the outskirts of town at the end of Wargrave Road is identical to the half-dozen others in the row, grey brick with a tiny front yard just large enough for a single rose bush each. It is situated in one of the new housing developments that had been erected hastily after the war. The site had formerly been a crater where a bomb had fallen, and I sometimes breathe deeply and imagine that I can still smell the gunpowder, though the house appears well kept from a distance. Closer I can see the little faults. Even in the near darkness, the cracks at the foundation, a bit of trim around the window that is beginning to fall. I glance at the coal bin and make a mental note to ask Joe to fill it. In the morning, of course. He will be on his third brandy or perhaps fourth, so he won't remember if I mention it now. Inside, the house is still. Joe is asleep in his chair, reliving the battles he fought, as he does every night. His newsboy cap sits on the table, and he is still wearing his white dress shirt from his long day at the accountancy firm.
Love you
Sleeves
too.
rolled. Joe's auburn hair remains military short, though his face is a bit fuller now with age. I lift the tilted glass gently from his hand and stub out the cigarette. A player's meat, dear. Joe rouses himself, mumbling unintelligibly before shuffling off. I watch with a pang of sadness as he retreats. Joe had served in the British Army during the war and had spent more than 4 years on the ground in active combat. Lucky, some call him, because he was never captured or even wounded. I can see the scars brought on by living under that kind of strain, though, watching friend after friend killed, never knowing if each day would be his last. Neither Joe nor I had ever talked in detail about what either of us had done during the war. It lies silent and unspoken between us, a dark divide. My mind reels back to the other day when the children had been playing hospital. They were using an old gauze bandage, wrapping it around a doll. Seeing this, Joe, usually so even-tempered, had become distraught. You're wasting medical supplies, he cried. Don't you know that some people don't have enough of those? His eyes had been wide with horror as he surely remembered men bleeding out when there hadn't been bandages to save them. I had taken his arm. It's okay. That's just an old scrap of cloth. It really can't be used for anything else. His eyes seemed to clear then. Yes, of course. Sorry. He retreated, his old calm returning. But I could see in that moment the deep places where he hid his anger and pain. 8 years have passed since the war ended and Joe came home. Far longer than he was over there. Time to get on with it, stiff-lipped English folks seem to say. And Joe has gotten on with it, putting his bravest face on to mask the pain. He goes to work and keeps the garden neat and pays the bills. Everything that a good husband and father is supposed to do. Only I'm close enough to see the scars that will never fully heal, and I wish there was more I could do to help him. I walk to the kitchen and pick up an empty packet of crisps from the counter, left there by one of the children. No doubt. I consider being annoyed and undecided isn't worth the trouble. I move around, cleaning and straightening. It is late and I'm exhausted. Tidying up might have waited until morning. But my own childhood had been a never-ending stream of empty beer bottles and unkempt rooms, and I don't want that for my family. I simply cannot rest unless things are in order. When I have set the kitchen to rights, I walk into the living room and sit down by the low table to work on the jigsaw puzzle that Joe gave me for Christmas, depicting a lovely image of the Welsh countryside in summer. I pick up a piece and study the jagged, half-done puzzle, finding a spot and trying it. The piece snaps satisfyingly into place. That is the thing I love most about puzzles. Something that moments earlier had made no sense at all now fits. I reach for another piece. I should go to sleep. I know. But these few minutes of solitude are worth more. 5 minutes later, I tear myself away from the puzzle and start upstairs. In the nursery, a fancy word for the children's shared room, which is just large enough for 2 single beds. The twins, Ewan and Phaedra, are sleeping soundly.
Thank
I pick up
you.
a Beano comic from the floor and place it on
I
the
wanted it
nightstand.
to be a little different, so I'm
Eyes
like, let
open.
me
Fine
just
art. And I regret not making it
add
back
a
to
whole
read to
bunch
them
of
before bedtime.
colors.
I normally only work when the children are at school, wanting to be home for them in the afternoons and evenings. Joe doesn't mind my helping at the shop, as long as it doesn't interfere with taking care of the house and children. But Midge had asked a favor. Something came up and she was called away suddenly. Could I stay and close up and straighten things for the night? So I left dinner and Joe agreed to put the children to bed. At first, I'd worried whether he could manage it. But despite his demons, Joe is good at being there when I need him to be. I stayed longer than I had planned to after closing the shop, getting lost as I so often did when sorting through the objects and imagining the stories behind them. I adjust the children's bedclothes to ward off the persistent cold of the second floor, then remove the hot water bottles, which have gone tepid. Downstairs is warm enough from the stove, but upstairs the electric fire does little to stave off the chill. I pause, studying their faces lovingly. Born after the war, Ewan and Fader sleep with the peaceful minds of ones who have never been woken and hurried to bomb shelters for nights on end. For me, doing without has always been a kind of default state, first from my poor childhood and later the Depression and then the war. But despite the shortages and rationing that carried into the post-war years and are only just now ending, my children have no memory of a time of worry or doing without, and for that I am grateful. I kiss them each on the forehead and then tiptoe from the room and down the hall. I slip into bed beside Joe and move close to him for warmth, leaning my forehead against the wide expanse of his back as I often do for comfort. I had met Joe in the London dance hall before the war. He was a college student and a rower, tall and confident. I was never quite sure what he saw in me, a girl who worked in one of the shops with no higher education nor family background. But we had a connection and made each other laugh. We went for drinks and to the movies in Leicester Square and talked of a future together after he graduated. Then the war broke out.
I'm making a
Before Joe
dress.
deployed, he abruptly ended things with me. I was
I mean, not a
budding.
dress, a
Other couples
skirt.
were going forward and
A
sealing
floor-length
doors for permanent
skirt.
weddings. Why not us? I just don't want you to rush in with me out of some sense of obligation, Joe explained when I asked. It was our last night together and we stood at Embankment, looking across the Thames at the blacked out buildings on the south bank. We were breaking curfew, but I didn't care. It isn't like that. I protested. And I don't want you to spend your whole life mourning for a bloke you knew a quick 5 minutes. He was afraid of not coming back. He was afraid of hurting me. Joe had come back, with the same affable grin, appearing unexpectedly one day on the doorstep to the shop where I was working, looking much the same except for a bit of gray at the temples. His hat was literally in his hands, the trilby filled with flowers and an engagement ring at the bottom. I'll never leave again, he promised, sensing my unease. We married a few months later and moved out to Henley, close to
Is
where
it?
we had grown up. It wasn't impetuous. Joe had.
I've been asking people that from the start of me getting on live. How did it look? How did it look? How did it look? And everyone said it was looking fine.
I had been so glad for his safe return that I had not seen
You
all of
can't
the
see my hands or what I'm
bruises.
crocheting.
He's not asleep. I can tell, for he does not toss fitfully from nightmares. Instead, he lies too still. I wish he might turn to me. I could reach for him, I suppose, if not for sex, then at least for a cuddle or to talk long into the night in the voices as we once had. But something
I've
stops me.
asked multiple people.
Instead,
Nobody said
I turn to my
anything.
own
So
side of the bed and drift to sleep. The next morning when I wake, Joe has already left for work. Despite his struggles, Joe has always kept to a strict schedule, rising and setting out for the station and the commuter rail to Oxford before dawn.
I don't know.
I sometimes wonder the daily grind and chaos of the children in the morning. I set out their breakfast, 2 bowls of Weetabix and fresh milk
Is
in
it
the
still
glass
blurry?
jug that the children prefer to the paper cartons of long, light milk that are doled out at school. I go upstairs to wake them, pausing to inhale their sleepy scent. Time to get up, loves. Then I carry on with the morning chores while they rouse and dress. I lift the laundry, wet and heavy, from the first tub and through the press into the second, the smell of bleach tickling my nose. I set out the empty glass bottles, as well as some old pots for the rag and bone man. Back inside, I glance down at a copy of the Times Joe left from the previous day. The headlines are about the Soviet Union
Is it still
and a
blurry?
possible rail strike in the north. I remember the days when the paper carried only news about the Second World War, and I still half expect to see those. But no one wants to talk about that anymore. When I have done as much around the house as I can, I fix myself a cup of Yorkshire tea, savoring the last bit of quiet. The children stumble down the stairs a few minutes later,
Okay.
dressed but unkempt. Fed is a little fairy of a girl, all blonde and pale, wide-set eyes and a charming gap between her front teeth. Ewan is solemn, with men-like features and a somber expression that tell exactly what he will look like when he grows up. I hurry the children through eating their breakfast and then putting on their socks and shoes, reminding myself not to be cross when they dawdle. This morning Ewan has a sniffle. I don't want to go to school, he whines. For a second, I debate whether I should keep him home. I do love when we curl up by the fire on a chilly day, with nothing to do but read and work on puzzles together. This morning, though, I'm restless. Selfishly, I don't want to give up my time at the shop. How about if I put an extra chocolate biscuit in your lunch? I offer. Ewan sniffs and nods, miraculously healed by the bribe. I'm secretly relieved when he puts on his coat and starts for the door without further complaint. I grab another biscuit for each child, pushing down my guilt. I try to feed them healthy, wholesome foods, but it is a losing battle. The children's magazines advertise soft drinks like Tizer, and the kids beg for the boiled sweets like barley sugars and licorice their friends have. Even though I warn them they will get holes in their teeth, we leave the house and start into town. It is a brisk September morning, and the leaves on the poplar trees that line the road seem crisper, signaling that they will soon begin to change. Fed runs ahead in her Mary Jane's, but Ewan drags his feet, scuffing his saddle shoes. I fight the urge to scold him for dawdling. If you hurry, you'll have time to play hopscotch before the bell, I say instead, exhaling silently when his pace quickens and he scurries to catch up with his sister. 15 minutes later, we cross Henley Bridge. Skulls and pears gliding beneath us on their morning rows. Boathouses dot the far bank of the river. Rowing, which had dwindled when the young men were away at war, has come back with the force of fun of looming after a forest fire. I think sadly of Joe. He rowed at uni until the war ruined his knees. Now he is forced to look on as a spectator at the sport he had once loved, and I suspect he avoids coming to town for this very reason. When we reach the school, the children run to their friends, who are playing tag and marbles. Ewan's legs are like sticks beneath his shorts, but Fed's are plump, cherubic. Through the classroom window, I can see the twins' teacher, Miss Eakley, filling the inkwells for the dipping pens. I drop the children off without lingering, pretending to be in a hurry so that I won't have to make small talk with the other mums. I just have so little in common with them. It is not only that I came from somewhere else while so many of them went to school together. They seem like alien beings, these women who are so content with child raising and chores. Only the occasional garden club or card game to break up the monotony. Surely, they had done other things during the war, too, but they gave it up so easily, as if it had never happened at all. Funnily, I envy them. Why can't I be content with this life? Leaving the school, I set out for the shops to purchase groceries for that evening's supper before heading to work. At the butcher's, women queue for meat, the sawdust from the floor clinging to the hems of their dresses. Once in a great while, Joe will drive me into Oxford to do a big shop at Sainsbury's, but day-to-day here, it is still separate stores for most of what we need. I pay, grateful that I do not have to worry whether I have enough. Joe's paycheck is adequate for what we need and a few modest treats. Joe is generous with money, giving me an allowance and a few extra quid if I need it without asking why. As I leave, I catch a glimpse of myself in the shop window. I've never been able to manage the makeup and rouge and mascara and the thousand ways women were meant to mimic the Hollywood starlets. Fortunately, I'm blessed with decent bone structure and can get away with just lipstick and powder most ordinary days, some pancake makeup and eyeshadow on special occasions. I don't even try to wear the form-fitting shapes that are all the rage these days with the new look or totter around on the heeled shoes that have replaced wartime work boots for most. Though childbirth had not been onerous, I still feel the tugs of a body that will never quite be the same. I carry the groceries home and put the cold items in the icebox. Thankfully, the cottage had come with some of the modern conveniences. And what it didn't have, Joe had added. When we moved in, he insisted on everything fresh and bright and as far from the past as possible, as if all of the shiny metal and chrome might chase away the painful memories. I wanted to tell him that it would do no good, but he would not listen, and so I let him try. I set out once more for town, my arms lighter without the groceries. When I reached the store, Midge is out. Ready there, rifling through a box. Midge's, as it is called for the faded sign out front, is a charity thrift shop, its slanted wooden shelves overflowing with second-hand goods. People bring in the things they don't want anymore, household items mostly, odds and ends. I help Midge to sort through the items and display for resale what is in suitable condition. Then others can come in and buy things at a reduced price, a service on both ends. I like the neatness of it all, sorting things into piles and setting them right. Like the jigsaw puzzles, it helps give me a sense of order and calm. I often wonder, too, about the people who own the objects and the stories behind the items I hold in my hands. Midge turns and starts to lift a new crate from a shelf with effort, and I hurry to help her set it down on the counter. Let me help. Midge has to be close to 80, a tiny slip of a woman. She moves with greater effort now among the clutter. That was how I had sold the idea of working at the shop to Joe, saying that Mitch needed the help. In fact, the job is more for my own benefit. I love to get out of the house and lose myself tinkering with objects from the past. Sort this one. Love. Mitch gestures to the crate, which has 2 broken slats. Seems mostly to be odd bits. Probably nothing worth saving. Probably. I slide the crate down onto the floor. How are the little ones? She asks. Needy, I blurt, regretting it at once. I'm lucky, I know, to have a beautiful, healthy family. It is the very thing I wanted, growing up alone with my mom in London as a child. It's just a lot sometimes. It's a lot, Midge agrees. When my Johnny was young, some days lasted forever. And then those days were gone. There is a note of sadness in her voice. Midge had a son, I recall Ben, who was killed in a car accident before the war. Her husband, unable to bear the loss, had taken his own life after. She is completely alone. Midge, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. She shakes her head. It's not the upsetting that is the problem. And Joe, how's he? I hesitate before answering. Midge and I are not particularly close, and it feels strange to talk to her about such things. At the same time, I'm grateful to have someone to confide in for once. He's the same. He's so sad, and I wish I could help him. It's not just him, though. It's me. I miss who I used to be, if that makes any sense. It does. You can't be any good for him until you've sorted out yourself. Have the 2 of you considered getting away together? Not really, except for an annual seaside family holiday to Brighton. We never leave town. I remember fondly a moment last year when I stepped away and treated myself to a candy floss I did not have to share, watching the seagulls swoop up at the promenade as I ate it. It's difficult with the children. You should think about it. I will. I promise. I carry the crate to the tattered cozy chair in the corner by the wood stove before sitting down. Rifling through the first few items, I consider putting the whole thing in the rubbish bin. There are some cracked glasses and a detached telephone receiver. True junk and likely nothing salvageable. I run my fingers along the bottom of the box, checking for any coins. My hand rubs against something metallic.
I'm making a skirt.
I pull at it, but it sticks. I clear the remaining objects from the box to get a better look. There is a gold link necklace, delicate yet sturdy, looped around the base of the wood crate. I dislodge it and hold it up to the light. On the chain is a charm shaped like a heart with a jagged edge, as though half is missing. But the metal is intact, suggesting an entire separate piece of jewelry is out there somewhere that might make up the second half. The shape is familiar. My breath catches. Look at this, I say, carrying the necklace to Midge. She takes it and turns it over with the expert hand of one who has been sorting longer than me. There is an inscription on the front, so faded among the scratch marks it is almost impossible to read. I can't just make out the words watch and me. What do you think this means? I ask Midge. He shrugs. I'm not sure. Doesn't look to be worth much, but I've never seen anything quite like it. That's the thing, I say slowly. I'm virtually certain I've seen this necklace before. Image. London, 1944. The Red Cross Center, a converted dance hall in Sutter, was hot and stuffy.
What is your least favorite part of crocheting? Mine is sewing. Doing ruffles and tucking in ends.
The woman gave a faint and continued trying to close the 2 small boxes she had been given. The packages were meant to contain cocoa and condensed milk, a tin of sardines, and a
What
bar
are you
of
doing?
chocolate.
What is this?
There was also sugar and margarine and a bar of soap, which I feared would make
I'm
the whole thing
crocheting.
smell of lavender. I decided to volunteer for the Red Cross after an incident a few weeks earlier. One day as I walked across the city, I saw a young girl sitting on a pile of rubble. She wasn't crying, but rather sitting numbly, wearing one shoe and holding a scrap of a blanket. I walked up to her. Are you hurt? She didn't answer, and I realized that she was in shock. I found a nearby police officer and turned the girl over to him. As I walked away, I was remorseful that I had not done more. Parents killed in the bombing, I was told when I went to the police station the next day to inquire about her well-being. Sent to an orphanage. I wished that I might have taken in the girl myself, but I was barely getting by just taking care of my mom. Still, the image of the girl lingered with me for days. My own childhood had been difficult enough with a single mother. How much harder would it be with no parents in wartime? After that, I became aware of the suffering around me more acutely. Simply trying to survive the war no longer felt like enough. I remembered a poster I had seen during one of my long nightly walks along the Thames that I took as a means of escaping the tiny flat I shared with my mom. I went back and found the notice pinned to a wall, fresh against the faded posters exhorting women to make do or mend and keep the curtains closed for the blackout, and to send their children to the countryside to escape the Blitz. Volunteers needed at the Red Cross Center, it read. So I had turned up the next evening and was seated without ceremony or introduction at one of the long tables to pack boxes. I looked across the table now. The women who volunteered at the Red Cross came from all walks of life, singletons in their 20s like myself, and mums and grandmothers who wanted to do their bit. Here we sat elbow to elbow, packing boxes, the fine ladies from Kensington and Mayfair, and girls like myself, whom they wouldn't have so much as looked at outside of wartime. We chatted among ourselves, eager for a few hours' company to forget the dreariness and hardship. It didn't matter if you came from a one-ring-room flat in South London, where your mum took in laundry and men and drank for days away. Some, not me, dressed as though they were going out for a night in the city, brought wine or pastries to share among us, if they had any to bring. One of the few things I did not hate about the war was the way it served as a kind of equalizer. More was possible now, no matter where you came from. There was a man who sat in the corner, puffing on a pipe and supervising us without speaking. Someone had mentioned that he was from the International Committee of the Red Cross. I wondered why he was here and not deployed, like most men his age. He must have been a few years older than me, though his dusty wool sports coat with leather patches at the elbow made him appear more mature. Attractive in a professorial sort of way. He looked in my direction suddenly and our eyes met. I turned away hurriedly, feeling my cheeks flush. I had a boyfriend, or at least I had until Joe had left for the war. He hadn't wanted me to worry while he was away or mourn him if he didn't come back. So while others had been in a hurry to get married before deploying, he'd broken up with me. Sudden rumbling caused the building to shake. Blimey, one of the women cried. A collective murmur rippled throughout the room as dust and bits of plaster began to fall from the ceiling. Some of the women reached for the gas masks they'd remembered to bring, but mine was back home in our flat, useless now. Should we make our way to the RH shelters? I worried about my mum, who was undoubtedly sleeping on the
Thank
bed
you.
drinking gin. More than once, I wondered if I would return to find a crater where a dismal flat had been. She would never know what hit her, which would be a blessing. I felt guilty at the thought. When a few minutes had passed and no further explosions came, the women resumed work on the care packages. 45 minutes later, when the last box was filled, the women stood to leave. I walked over to the coat rack. Behind it there was a bulletin board with the volunteer schedule and some other routine announcements. I scanned the familiar notices, seeing nothing new. Reluctantly, I put on my coat and began the long walk home. 2 heading level 1, Helene heading level 2, Paris, 1938. You almost never know when it is the last time. One Sunday, when Helene was 5 years old, her father took her
Yes,
on
I'm
a
almost
picnic
done.
to the park Monceau. They flew a kite until the string became tangled in the branches of an oak tree from the brisk September wind. Then her father bought a bag of salted nuts, and they sat by the pond, watching leaves and bits of newspaper blow by and send the pigeons scattering. Helene leaned against the scratchy wool of his coat sleeve, smelling the lingering pipe smoke. Finally, she complained that she was tired, and they started for home. She would not leave the house again. The next week, she died. Almost died. Helene corrected herself as she did her mother, every time she told the story. Mom always pressed her hand to her chest and fluttered her eyelashes, as though she was about to lose consciousness herself. She insisted that Helene had stopped breathing and that the doctor had declared her heartbeat gone. His next sentence of condolence cut short by Mom's singular wail. Helene had been looking forward to starting school in just 1 week's time. Her new bag and shoes sat by the door waiting, but the fever came without warning. One moment she was fine and the next day bedridden, scarcely able to move or speak. Helene lay in bed, clinging to life. For weeks, doctors came and went, shaking their heads apologetically and explaining that there was nothing more to be done. The chief rabbi of Paris called at their house to offer prayers. Then, just as improbably, Helene returned. She coughed and opened her eyes and sat up. The fever that had held her in its grip suddenly broken, except it wasn't. The effects of influenza, which had swept through Paris and hit Helene with stunning force, were long-term. Her heart was weakened and susceptible to infection. She struggled to walk even a few steps. From that moment, Helene's world changed entirely. Her family no longer traveled. Helene had vague memories
Thank
before she
you.
became ill of grand summer vacations in the south of France, winter ski trips to St. Moritz. Suddenly, all of it stopped. Visitors to their home became practically non-existent. Before Helene's illness, they had several servants. They were all let go.
Just to get started, all I did was you can chain a certain amount, and then find the length of your waist, I guess. So you chain the length of your waist. You don't want it to be like, say your waist length is 80 chains, right? And then like pull on it a little bit and see if it's like you can do a little less, because when you wear it, it's gonna stretch if you do it too fitting. So maybe do like 82, 83, or maybe you can do 79, whatever, depending on how many. And then all I did was slip stitch into it, and then just kept going around and around and around. That's all. It's nothing crazy, just kept going around, down, 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 changing colors, and keep going.
To keep germs farther from her. Instead of Helene starting school that fall, her parents hired a tutor. She watched enviously from her window as other children walked back and forth to school, yearning to feel the pavement beneath her feet and the sun on her face, unencumbered by a window sash. It had been more than 13 years since she had taken ill, and still she remained inside. Helene, 18 now, peered out the window at the grand street below. Though she had little to compare it with, Helene knew from a young age that their home, a 4-story townhouse with a courtyard, was extraordinary. Even in their elegant neighborhood in the 9th arrondissement, referred to by some as the Beaux Quartiers, the wide, gleaming house stood out like a shining jewel. Down the street, a moving truck idled along the pavement, the logo La Castaigne emblazoned on its side. As a young child, Helene had always taken in the appearance of movers with curious enthusiasm, hoping that she might be getting new neighbors with a child her age. After her illness, though, her interest waned. Even if a child, moved in on their street, she would not be allowed out to play with them. Helene looked away from the window, turning from the world that could not be hers to the one she was forced to live in. Once Helene could no longer go outside, her mother had set out to make their already opulent house a place that Helene would never want to leave. As a result, their home was a marvel of comforts. The walls were bright and decorated with cheerful paintings of faraway places. The furniture was softly upholstered with downy pillows Helene could sink into until she was almost lost. Every book or toy Helene wanted was hers for the having.
I don't know, because I keep picking it up, doing a couple of rows, and then putting it down. So
having beautiful clothes with nowhere to wear them.
I don't know.
It was as if she lived in a gilded cage.
It doesn't take that long to make, but
her favorite room in the house, with her feet tucked up beneath her in the window seat. Walls of books
it's only been a couple of
so
days
high that a small rolling ladder was needed to reach
because
the top shelves.
I keep putting it down
as long as she could remember to roam the
and doing
shelves
other
freely.
stuff.
No one ever said a book was too grown up or that she shouldn't read it. Her mind was as free as her body was.
I'm using a
so she learned to read early and voraciously.
6.5.
The only limit holding her back from discovering the outside world was Helene herself. There was a kind of pain in reading about all of the places she could not see beyond the walls of their house. But in these books, she could be anyone and go anywhere, and she gratefully took the ride. In her hands, she held a small, leather-bound journal, one of her most treasured possessions. Helene didn't just read stories, she loved to write them as well. She wrote about a girl called Anna, her strong alter ego who could travel and do magnificent things. Helene sent her on many great journeys. For the past few days, She had written about Anna visiting Italy and seeing the Spanish Steps and Colosseum, sites that Helene herself had only dreamed about. She had created a friend, Sophia, whom Anna had met in Rome, and now the two girls were debating if they should head to Lisbon or Athens. Not sure of the answer, Helene closed her journal and picked up Little Women, which she was reading for the third time. Normally, she preferred more adventurous books, like The Three Musketeers, but she identified with Beth's confinement in the way that Jo felt torn between home and seeing the world. Helene looked out at the Paris streets, which seemed to beckon. Why not go outside? She thought suddenly. She had no physical impairments anymore and she had not been sick for years. Rather, it was the fear of illness, her parents' fear, really, that kept her from living fully. Helene heard footsteps down the corridor and knew without checking that it was Mama. It was not just the lightness of her step. Her mother was the only other person who was ever there. Papa traveled the world for his business. When he did come home, he would first quarantine in a small flat off Rue Petrel so as not to bring germs from his travels and make her sick, or so he said. Helene knew that really he went there to meet his lover. Her mind reeled back to when she was 8 and saw Papa's limousine pull up on the street in front of their house. Her heart had skipped a beat. Papa always brought fun and light, the whiff of foreign countries, and a welcome break from her solitary confinement. And gifts. Helene watched with anticipation as the rear door of the limousine opened. As the top of Papa's familiar hat appeared, she glimpsed something else through the car door. A woman's leg? The dress hem and shapely calf beneath seam nylons were unmistakably feminine. At first, Helene assumed that it was her mother.
Yes, I am.
Mom was downstairs, though, and the leg bore no resemblance to her own matronly form. Helene could not ignore the fact then that her father was unfaithful, even though she did not know exactly what that meant at such a young age. Somehow she understood. Helene's father was not an unkind man. He provided them with every material comfort. But so many French men, especially wealthy ones, kept lovers on the side and there was nothing to be done about it. Maman pretended not to notice. That was the charade and they all maintained it. Helene often wondered if it was her illness and the burden of caring for her that had driven her parents' marriage apart, or if the infidelity was culturally inevitable. Restless
If
now,
anybody cares to
Helene
know
came
what
from the
book I'm
library
listening
toward the
to,
kitchen. As she passed the china cabinet in the hallway, she
it's
spied her grandmother's tea set. Sadness rose in her.
Last
One of the things she
Twilight
was
in
most after
Paris,
getting
an
was the story from her
enchanting
grandmother's house.
World War
A
II
dusty
historical
mansion in
mystery,
Gloucester Street
love,
with an
and
attic that had endless
resilience.
trunks for a child to explore. Helene's grandmother died when Helene was 9, and Helene never got to see her or visit her house again. They had just a few things of hers, including the silver tea set. Looking at the tea set now, it seemed to represent everything Helene had lost. Her grandmother, her freedom, her life. She had accepted her solitude, but as she had gotten older, her desire to explore the outside world had grown. It burned inside her now, hotter than ever. She could not go on like this any longer. Impulsively, she returned to her room, changed clothes and found her coat. It was a size too small, and she had never actually worn it. She walked downstairs to where her mother was just pulling a tray of croissants from the oven. Though they could afford an army of servants, Mama insisted on doing everything herself for Helene, cooking healthy meals, overseeing her education and her care. Sometimes Helene found her mother watching her as she slept. She would reach out and touch Helene, as if to make sure she was still there. Her mother was constantly in motion. Helene had no early memories of her sitting down. Only later would Helene realize that her mother's perpetual movement was not only to help and care for Helene, but to stave off her own loneliness. Helene's mother came over and put her arms around her. Helene buried her nose in the familiar place in her mother's neck, inhaling her sweet scent. Maman smelled like cherries and vanilla, and Helene never quite knew if that was natural or perfume or the aroma of the delicious baked goods she always made. Helene always felt in her mother's embrace not just love, but the sadness of all of the things she had not been able to give her freedom, or at the very least a sibling as company. Helene knew that there was disappointment mixed in as well. Her parents didn't talk of the hopes they had for her if she had been healthy, but she could see it in their eyes. They wanted Helene to marry someone important and carry on the family name with her children. But all of that was gone now. She had been told that the illness she suffered as a child had left her unable to have children of her own. She was an empty vessel, or should have been. Helene's mother held out a croissant to her. Normally, Helene loved the flaky, buttery treats, but today she had other things on her mind. No, thank you. Her mother's expression was puzzled. It was not like Elaine to turn down one of her delicious baked goods. Then, seeing Elaine's coat, her brow furrowed. I'd like to take a walk, Elaine said, scarcely managing the words. It was not the first time Elaine had thought about going, but something, the fear of it angering her parents or perhaps of it being too much, had stopped her from pushing to go. Now, though, something felt different. She was driven to see the outside world. Elaine's mother looked at her as though she had suggested juggling knives. But how can you possibly? Just a short walk, Elaine replied quickly. It's early, so there won't be many people out. It's too dangerous, her mother protested. You might catch something and get sick. Elaine watched as her mother's eyes grew dark, and Elaine knew that she was remembering the fear and sadness of Elaine's childhood illness once more. I will be safe. The doctor said fresh air will do me good. He meant short walks around the garden, not running the streets of Paris. Still, Elaine would not be dissuaded. Once around the block. I'll go now, early in the morning when no one else is out. Please? I cannot stay in this house forever. Elaine's voice rose uncharacteristically. She and her mother had never fought. Elaine asking to walk was their first disagreement now, though. A Fisher, Elaine's mother stared at her skeptically, and Elaine was certain she would refuse. Fine, she relented. Elaine looked at her mother with disbelief. Elaine was 18 years old now, though. She could hardly keep her prisoner. But just down the street, and back straight away, Elaine replied, doubting the promise even as she made it. Shall I come with you? Her mother asked. No, Elaine said quickly, regretting it as a hurt look crossed her mother's face. It was not that Elaine disliked her mother's company. To the contrary, they had been one another's only companions for a long time now and had always gotten on well, moving like two appendages of the same body in their shared space. But this was about freedom, and to Elaine, having her mother beside her, hovering and worrying, was the very opposite of that. You shouldn't go by yourself. Mom impressed. I need to do this myself. Elaine feared that her mother would insist on going. To Elaine's surprise, her mother did not argue further. Fine, Mom said again, her voice begrudging. Elaine realized then that her mother liked their solitude and being shut off from the world, because she felt safer where she could control everything.
I don't know how many more rows I need, but
Or I shall have to come looking for you.
let me try this on.
Strength for the journey home. Elaine's mother walked from the kitchen and a moment later returned with a blue wool beret. She put it on Elaine's head and pulled it low, drawing it so close around her ears that it squeezed. Her expression was solemn and intent, as if by that one gesture she could keep Elaine safe. Then she handed her a few francs. In case you need anything, she added. Elaine wanted to point out that she was only going down the street, but she knew that to her mother, Elaine going even that short distance felt far and unpredictable. Thank you, quickly, before Maman could change her mind. Elaine walked from the kitchen. She started down the stairs, half expecting her mother to come after her, but the house behind her remained still as Elaine stepped outdoors into the chilly March morning. Her excitement grew. She had looked down at their street through the window so many times over the years, but to be standing on it was something else entirely. Everything seemed so much brighter and crisper, the colors of the early spring flowers in the window boxes more vibrant. Elaine ran her hand along the iron gate in front of their house, savoring the feeling of cool condensation against her skin, but she only had a short while. There was no time to linger. Elaine started for the corner, then hesitated, considering which route she should take. She needed to pack the absolute most she could into her briefcase. She set out east in the direction of Route de Paradis, with its cluster of lively storefronts.
Let me
The world
see.
looked so different from the
Okay, guys, I think I'm gonna end the live here. But thank you for everybody that came in and supported the live. Whether you liked the live, shared the live, or commented in the chat, thank you guys. And maybe I'll go back live later on, but for right now, I'm gonna get off.